Hey, please, wait! Help me! Despite desperately shouting from the company premises, my husband only smirked defiantly. Yes, my hands are broken and I can't move them as I would like. Unable to unlock the car, I had no choice but to throw my body against the car door. It was summer. Sweat pours out of me and I start to feel sick in the 100-degree-plus seat. Even seeing me like that, my husband didn't change his expression at all. On the contrary, he waved his hand cheerfully and disappeared somewhere, seeming to enjoy himself. In that moment, everything went pitch black, and I found myself standing on the brink of despair. Why am I going through this? If it continues like this, my body will really go haywire. Someone, please help me. As the discomfort grows, my consciousness gradually fades. Then, I heard unexpected voices. It was the voices of unfamiliar people. My name is Maggie, and I'm 29 years old. I'm just an ordinary office worker in a general company. I met my husband Keith 3 years ago, and we got married just a year ago. We initially got to know each other through work, so we have a mutual understanding of each other's duties. When I said I want to continue working even after getting married, he smiled, gently.
It's fine, isn't it? Nowadays, it's normal for women to work actively.
But your mom was a homemaker, right? And before, you also said you wanted me to be a homemaker when we got married.
Don't worry about that. I just wanted you to live in a way that feels right for you.
Really? Is it okay for me to keep working?
Of course. Honestly, it would be more helpful if both of us worked until we have children.
Thank you, Keith. I'll make sure to manage household matters properly too. In response to that, my husband gently stroked my head, saying,
You don't have to push yourself.
I had always loved how he respected my feelings to the fullest since the early days of our relationship. But when did it start? When did he, who used to be so kind, suddenly become cold and distant? The first time I felt a sense of discomfort was about 6 months into our marriage, on a certain day. During this time, my work was hectic, and I was dealing with days filled with continuous overtime. With a lot on my plate, and having assumed a managerial position at a young age, I had to approach my duties with a sense of responsibility. On the other hand, my husband's company rarely required overtime. Since promotions were mostly based on a fixed schedule, he usually returned home earlier than I did. On this particular day, when I returned home, I found my husband lying on the sofa, playing video games. His suit and socks were strewn about, and there was no preparation for dinner. The used dishes were left as they were. Suppressing in a sigh that seemed ready to escape, I rolled up my sleeves and started doing the dishes. At that moment, without turning his face towards me, my husband continued to focus on the game screen and casually said,
Hey, is dinner ready yet? I'm pretty hungry, you know.
Upon hearing those words, my hands, which were washing dishes, came to a halt. The juggling act between work and household chores seemed to have reached its limit for my mind and body. Normally, I could have brushed it off with a sorry or I'll prepare it soon, but on this day, I just couldn't ignore my husband's words. Still standing in the kitchen, I suddenly realized I was raising my voice at him. What's that about? I just got home, you know. If you're going to say that, couldn't you at least do the dishes or make some simple side dishes?
Huh? Why me? Aren't household chores your responsibility?
My responsibility? Why? We both work.
Well, you brought it up. When we got married, you said, I'll do my best with household chores too.
Of course, I said that. But does that mean I have to take on all the burden? Isn't that unfair?
Then quit your job. Well, my salary isn't that high, and I can't afford to give you an allowance. But if that's okay with you, I can do that.
What is that? I never expected to hear such things, and I found myself at a loss for words. Standing there, dumbfounded, he chuckled as if mocking me.
What? Were you thinking selfishly? Like wanting to work but not do household chores or something?
No, that's not it. I just want you to help out a bit.
Help out? Didn't you decide to handle both work and household chores on your own? Why should I have to help? It just doesn't make sense.
Isn't it normal for couples who both work to share household responsibilities? I never thought you'd say something like that.
Huh? Don't shift the blame onto me. You decided that on your own, so take responsibility for it, okay?
My husband, almost spitting the words out, said that, and once again began to focus on the game. Unable to retort any further, I held back the welling tears and could only desperately continue with the household chores. Why do I have to go through all this alone? We are a married couple. Couldn't he help a little? I just want to have a happy marriage. What's wrong with that? From this day onward, my husband's words and actions escalated rapidly. Even if he came home late due to overtime, he started hurling abusive words at me.
Hey, why are you always so late? How long do you intend to keep dinner waiting?
Sorry, but I did tell you beforehand that I would be late today before leaving for work.
Huh? Like I would know that? You're using work as an excuse. Typical of a woman to abandon household chores.
No, I didn't mean to neglect chores with a broom.
Then, what is it? The result of prioritizing work is this, right? Ah, I thought I married a good wife, but I feel like I've been betrayed.
You don't have to say it like that. Faced with me on the verge of tears, my husband sighed as if it were a bother. The kindness reminiscent of our early days of dating was nowhere to be found, replaced only by harsh words. Each day, my mind and body approached their limits within this challenging routine. Despite that, what made me want to continue the marriage was the presence of my in-laws. They lived about an hour away by car from our modest apartment, and they regularly visited, bringing delicious cakes and sweets from my favorite shops. Each time, they would speak kind words to me. I loved how they treated me with affection, like their own daughter. Today, once again, my in-laws showed up with smiling faces.
Today, Mom and I stopped by Maggie's favorite shop, and they had a new dessert on sale.
Oh, come on. We were so excited and bought it all for Maggie. It genuinely makes me happy when they take actions with me in mind. Accepting the paper bag handed over by my father-in-law, I expressed my gratitude with a beaming smile. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad. I'm really grateful for your thoughtfulness. Always.
What are you saying? Maggie is our precious daughter, so it's only natural. Keith seems to be inviting you, and I'm grateful for you for marrying someone as lovely as you.
No, it's not like that. I'm always causing trouble for Keith.
What are you talking about? Keith is the one causing trouble, isn't he? He's the type who doesn't do any household chores.
That's right. That kid has a bit of a sloppy side. If anything happens, feel free to consult with us anytime, okay? Sorry. As they were having such a conversation, my husband barged in at just the right moment. He pulled me close and began to act like a happily married couple.
Both Mom and Dad worry too much. We get along really well, and we share the household chores properly. Really? I can't believe you can do such skillful things.
That's right. You're just handing everything over to Maggie.
That's not true. I do my share of household chores since Maggie is working, you know. What about it, Maggie?
I shuddered involuntarily at my husband's smiling face. How could he tell such lies as effortlessly as breathing? Nevertheless, I couldn't afford to cause trouble for my in-laws because of me. I desperately responded with a smile that said, "Yeah, it seems that way." Seeing that, my in-laws smiled happily. That's right. I must not ruin this happiness. For the sake of my beloved in-laws, I had to endure. Every time my in-laws visited, I repeated the act of pretending to get along well with my husband. One day, something happened. After work, I fell on the stairs at the station, resulting in fractures in both arms. Bystanders called an ambulance, and I had to be transported to the hospital for emergency treatment. I was forced to stay in the hospital for a while. Since my job involves using a computer, this injury could impact my work. When I contacted the company and explained the situation, they told me not to push myself and take a break, so I decided to take about 2 months off. Both the injury and the need to take time off from work were entirely due to my own carelessness, so there was no helping it. But what saddened me the most was that my husband didn't visit me once during my hospitalization. After about 2 weeks in the hospital, I was discharged. I had informed my husband of my discharge date, but there was no response from him. Maybe Keith won't come to pick me up after all. Unable to move both arms, I couldn't carry my belongings and take the train home. I had no choice but to pick up a taxi at the hospital and go home. While pondering such thoughts, I headed to the hospital's main entrance with the assistance of a nurse. There, I was met by my husband, waiting with a refreshing smile.
Maggie, I've been waiting for you.
Huh? Keith, why?
Why? Because I was worried, of course. I decided to come and pick you up. You can't go home alone when you can't use both hands.
But I contacted you, and you didn't reply at all.
Sorry. I've been busy too. Anyway, let's go home quickly, okay? You must be tired of the hospital life, right?
My husband received my belongings from the nurse, loaded them onto the car's cargo area, and then opened the passenger seat door, seemingly guiding me. Observing him with his smart demeanor, the nurses were all cheering and getting excited. I nodded at them, then got into the car with complex emotions. As we drove, my husband kept repeating trivial stories. Until I was hospitalized, he used to hurl verbal abuse at me and maintain a cold attitude every day. I wondered what had brought about this change. With a sudden shift to kindness, I felt a sense of distrust towards my husband, contrary to how things were before. Ignoring my feelings, my husband parked the car in the parking lot of a park about 10 minutes from our home and slowly began to speak.
Well, from here, drive back home on your own.
Huh? Wait a minute. Are you kidding? This has to be a joke, right?
A joke? After neglecting household chores for 2 weeks, it's only natural that you face the consequences.
Wait, I still can't use both hands, and the sensation in my arms hasn't fully returned. Driving back alone from here...
Shut up. Do you even realize how much I struggled because of you?
My shoulders involuntarily twitched at the sound of my husband's shouting. He hadn't come to pick me up out of kindness. He considered my 2 weeks of hospitalization as neglecting household chores and had purposely come to pick me up to administer punishment, specifically to make me drive. My husband unfastened only his seatbelt and tried to exit the car. As he stepped outside to close the door, I pleaded desperately with him. Wait, Keith. Once I've healed, I promise I'll take care of the household chores properly.
You've been slacking off for 2 weeks already, haven't you? Excuses won't work now.
Please, forgive me. If I'm left behind in this intense atmosphere at work, it will only get worse by the time I reach the venue.
I don't care. Fix your hands quickly and come out on your own.
That's... The husband coldly uttered his words and forcefully slammed the car door shut. To make matters worse, he locked it from the outside. Hey, please, wait, help. Desperately, I raised my voice from inside the car. However, the husband just smirked mockingly. The sensation in both hands has yet to fully return. Unable to open the car lock from the inside, I had no choice but to throw my body against the door. No matter how many times I tried to calm down, my body remained unresponsive. It was summer, with temperatures exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweating profusely in the scorching heat, I began to feel nauseous. Despite witnessing my condition, my husband showed no change in expression. On the contrary, he happily waved and disappeared somewhere. In that moment, everything in front of me went pitch black, and I found myself standing on the brink of despair. Why am I in such a situation? If things continue like this, my body might truly go awry. Someone, please help. As the discomfort grew, my consciousness gradually drifted away. I no longer had the energy to move my body, and my vision began to blur. Maybe it's over. Just as I was about to close my eyes,
Hey, Maggie!
I wake up with a start at the loud call. Looking out the window, my in-laws continue to call my name with pale faces. Father! Mother!
Are you okay? The keys? Can't you open it?
Oh no! Maggie's arm! My father-in-law hurriedly tries to open the door, but it doesn't budge because it's locked. Then he grabs a nearby concrete block and smashes it against the rear window with all his might. After repeating this a few times, cracks gradually appear on the window and it slowly shatters. Through the broken area, my father-in-law reaches in and unlocks the car from the inside.
Maggie, are you okay?
Being pulled out of the car by my in-laws, I was shedding tears of relief. Yeah. It was scary. I was so scared. Holding me gently like a child, my mother-in-law comforted me. When I heard the story, it turns out they were on their way to our house. Passing by the park, they noticed our car, and recognizing the license plate, they found me in a dazed state inside.
Tell us, what happened?
Explaining to my father-in-law, who was looking at me with a serious gaze, I recounted what had occurred. The expressions of my in-laws improved rapidly as they learned the truth.
Sorry, Maggie. I can't believe Keith would do something so terrible.
No, I'm sorry for keeping quiet too. I can't take it anymore after this incident.
Yeah, I understand. We'll protect you. So don't worry.
That's right. You don't have to worry anymore. Mom, Dad.
Anyway, let's go and put an end to all of this.
My in-laws got into their car, and my father-in-law drove us towards our home where my husband was waiting. When my father-in-law rang the intercom, my husband cheerfully appeared. However, as soon as he noticed me behind my father-in-law, his face contorted in an instant.
Why? Maggie, why are you here?
From the expressions of my in-laws, he probably understood everything. My husband's face rapidly turned pale.
Keith, I heard everything from Maggie.
My husband clearly appeared disturbed by the cold statement.
No, it's a misunderstanding. It's just that...
My father-in-law, grabbing his arm by the collar, shouted at him as he began making excuses.
Don't mess around. Hurting such a wonderful wife like this? How much of a scumbag are you, huh? Pretending to get along in front of us and secretly hurting her like this? As a man, you're finished. No, I just want Maggie to become a good wife.
A good wife? Coming from you, who isn't a good husband, you idiot? I'm truly disappointed in you. I'm cutting off our parent-child relationship. Never come back home again. Scum like you can live alone in loneliness. Suffer on your own.
No way. Mom, please say something to her.
His plea was rejected as my mother-in-law shook her head. In her place, I bluntly stated, "You've done more than enough awful things to me. Perhaps losing your family is the payback you deserve."
No, I don't want that. Please, don't abandon me. No, I can't take it.
My husband clutched his head and crumbled to the floor from his knees. Despite his tearful apologies, I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. I decided to rely on my in-laws until I found a new place to live. With my parents-in-law as witnesses, I divorced my husband. Perhaps fearing his parents, Keith readily signed the divorce papers. Instead of seeking alimony, I demanded he never to be involved in my life again. Since we had common colleagues at work, news of our divorce quickly spread. Afterward, Keith seemed to have a hard time at work, repeatedly being late or absent without notice. It seemed like it was only a matter of time before he would be fired. But I felt no sympathy for him. Let him sit behind bars and suffer for all I care. I can never thank my supportive parents-in-law enough for saving me at that time and continuing to support me. They are my benefactors. I hope to repay my in-laws properly in the future, no matter how it takes shape. For now, let's focus on fully recovering from the injuries.